Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. On the watch and advisory map for tonight, flood watch continuing here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast through tomorrow for possible flooding. That's something more severe than what's currently going on. And then we have a wind advisory out through 10 a.m. Saturday here for the eastern Alaska range through the passes. Winds 30, 35, gusting 50 miles an hour. Saw that today around Delta. That's forecast to continue again through tomorrow morning. And looking at the breakup map, again, everything from the Brooks Range southward, all open. The Colville and Kapparik and the other one, the Sagwan, still slowly in a state of breaking up there with a fair amount of ice back here toward the north slopes of the Brooks Range and also through here, but some to mostly open elsewhere on out to the coastline. And for satellite imagery for yesterday, you could see a lot of sunshine here across the eastern interior, right down along and off the southeast coast there. Otherwise, we had this big mass of moisture flowing northward in a pretty good south and southwesterly jet, active upper level low out over the northern Bering Sea. And this area pushed rain from Kodiak Island right up into the southern interior overnight and into this morning, with pretty good rain throughout the day occurring back as another system comes northward here, right back into the Alaska Peninsula. We also picked up some pretty gusty northwest winds out there, and we got that front right across Kodiak Island this afternoon, and a little bit of a break coming in here after was actually mostly a warm front pushed off to the northeast there, and most of the rainfall again backed up along the Alaska Range, so a little, if anything, getting north of the mountains there into the Tanana Valley. But a few showers did break out here and there off to the west and northwest. Another mostly sunny day again across the north slope, and mostly over the eastern Arctic coast saw the most sunshine. Low clouds and areas of fog a little more prevalent today on the central and eastern coast, but some clouds did slip on into the northern panhandle there, with actually some lower stuff and drizzle right along the north coast that pushed into the Elfin Cove area. But a lot of sunshine over the central and southern areas, and again, temperatures back into the 60s to, in some cases, the mid to upper 70s in some locations down to the south. Otherwise, the Bering Sea, just lots of clouds and showers with the main upper low there over the northern areas, and clouds associated with another system here pushing in toward the central Aleutians with a little bit of moisture and not much wind at all with that. You can see most of the bulk of the rain-producing clouds still down to the south there. But you can see this next system crossing the Alaska Peninsula, and probably right at this time the low center is in the Bristol Bay area. But earlier today, again crossing the peninsula there, rainfall from the southwest interior all the way down across the Alaska Peninsula. And again, western Alaska Peninsula seeing winds gusting to about 35 miles an hour out of the northwest, with rain in many areas. And then we had the rain earlier today coming onto the North Gulf Coast through south central Alaska, and some areas in the Susitna Valley picking up close to ½ inch of rain, like around Talkeetna today. But again, this breaking up and ending this afternoon as the front and system continues northward. Up in the interior, mostly cloudy, scattered showers, pretty isolated here in the northeast. More of a scattered variety off to the west, and then some low clouds, fog, and drizzle. Nunivak Island back up to the northwest, and just low pressure out here over the Bering Sea. Weak at the surface, but a lot more impressive looking aloft. And for tonight, we'll see that front swings on through. So more moisture will surge up Cook Inlet later this evening, and look for an increase in the rainfall over northern Cook Inlet, Kenai to Anchorage and Palmer, and definitely into the Susitna Valley again. And then it'll tend to back off by tomorrow morning. Also with that low pulling northward, could get a little breezy again this evening, pick up those east and southeast winds, upper hillside turning an arm, and otherwise less wind and the main trough here swinging into the southwest. So a lot of cloud showers and rain all through this area back up to the surface low there near the Seward Peninsula. And then a band of showers, actually some leftover moisture lifting northward and enhancing on the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range. So pretty good chance of showers up in that area. Staying mostly dry there for the north slope, but look for a gradual increase in the clouds. And IFR on the east side to VFR on the west side, right along the coastline there. And variable clouds are anyway dry across the southeast coast. Again, might see an increase in the low stuff there right along the coastline as the night wears on. And then there's that next system, not particularly strong, but spreading chance of rain up into the central Aleutian, some of that beginning to flow into the eastern areas there. And again, an upper trough here, keeping it showery over the northern Bering Sea with areas of IFR and just some scattered showers now, winds becoming more westerly and diminishing there for the Alaska Peninsula. And looking ahead to tomorrow, we'll see moisture shifts northward, just where the front was, just dashing that in as a trough, but the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range there, probably picking up some rain, just some showers possibly into the north slope area, basically dry again, a little more persistent low cloud and fog condition there for the central and east side, and even the west side, not quite as nice as it's been. And then a lot of moisture sliding northeastward here, kind of getting caught up in the upper level low over the northern Bering Sea. So I have kind of a wave there developing, so periods of rain, better chance for Nikolsky than say on Alaska, and most of that might stay north of the Alaska Peninsula, but keep a chance of rain there, southwest winds, back to showers toward Adak and Atka, and drier beyond that. The front here really weakening and slowly pressing in toward the southeast coast. So definitely look for an increase in the low stuff or just cloud cover in general for the coastal areas. But inland, thermal trough in over western Canada there. So farther east you go, the more sun and warmer temperatures you'll have. And for the Sunday outlook, basically some of that moisture will probably get into the northern panhandle, just some scattered showers. Basically an increase in the clouds, a lot more onshore component to the flow there with a thermal troughing over western Canada. But scattered showers, eastern Copper River Basin up possibly into the Northway Toke area, and pretty fair. So look for a little more clearing here over the central interior and maybe down to the Susitna Valley, but a pretty good trough comes on shore. Westerly flow here coming across the Bering Sea is going to push that right in to the Kuskokwim Valley and the western Alaska Range, trailing on back, a band of rain trailing on back into Bristol Bay. And some of this moisture in the afternoon possibly will jump the Alaska Range and slide on into Cook Inlet. So look for some increasing chances of rain through this area on Sunday afternoon. Rain pretty likely back up to the northwest there in towards Kotzebue Sound, and clouds and showers here across the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island. Maybe a few breaks showing up behind that system along the coast there with that onshore westerly flow off the Bering Sea. Anything that does break out, consider a bonus. And now we've got westerly flow coming across the Bering Sea, so another trough pushing into the sea out there, and looks like another one forming farther back toward Kamchatka Peninsula, and that'll be all rolling on in for the first of next week. Otherwise, still low clouds, fog, IFR in the eastern Arctic coast, breaking out to VFR on the west side. And looking ahead or at the temperatures today, again, pretty warm down here in the southern areas. Metlakatla 68, mid-afternoon temperatures, again, not the highs. Stewart Airport up to 77, and Heidelberg at 69, but only 61 there at Klawock, 58 Sitka, 48 with the low clouds, fog, and drizzle at Elfin Cove, but Juneau up to 68, 52 Cordova, and 50s here for the Copper River Basin, and for Northway, 59. Pretty uniform temperatures there across Tohoku Delta. Then you jump into the mid-60s range for the central Tanana Valley, and 40s and mid-50s here, south central Alaska, the Sitna Valley, on down toward Homer, where it was 56, just 50 in Seward. Same thing at Kodiak. Up to the north, not too bad, upper 50s to lower 60s here, Koyukuk and upper Yukon Valley, as well as back toward and into the Kobuk Valley. Nice 56 at Umiat Airfield this afternoon with 57 at Anatuvik. And the Arctic coast, the exception of Barrow at 29, mostly above freezing or into the 40s. And again, a lot more sunshine out here with that offshore flow. And again, Point Lay pushed up to 57, 40s over the northwest. Seward Peninsula, kind of a range, upper 40s to mid 50s there. About the same here across the Yukon Delta, 53 in McGrath, 53 in Bethel, and Macoriac had 41. Farther out to the west, Pribilof's lower 40s, mid 40s here, central and western Aleutians. Just 41 at Nikolsky, but Unalaska had 46, and mid 40s for the peninsula, into the lower to mid 50s up to the northeast. Lows for tonight, 40s to near 50 or into the lower 50s, warmest in the south down there. Otherwise, upper 30s to upper 40s here across just about all of interior Alaska, but hanging down in the mid 30s out toward the west coast. Up across the Seward Peninsula, a little below freezing there to St. Lawrence Island. Mid 20s, mid to upper 20s, North Slope, Arctic coast. And then looking at the highs tomorrow, kind of warming up a little bit here over the eastern interior, lower 70s or 65 to 75 through that area, mid 60s in toward the Fairbanks area, and then cooling off to the west with mostly 50s, cooling into the 40s, and then 30s there for the Chukchi Sea to St. Lawrence Island, 50s here to maybe lower 60s, southern Alaska, and a day much like today here for the southeast coast with the warmest conditions, some of which may be into the lower 70s down south and mid to upper 60s to the north, but notably cooler right along the coastline, especially from roughly Port Alexander on up to Yakutat. And from there, we'll go to tomorrow's flying weather, tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning. A good swath of IFR there from the Northeast Pacific right into Prince William Sound, south side Kenai Peninsula, and then up western Cook Inlet, especially on the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range, with areas of IFR back to the west. And eastern Arctic coast from Barrow eastward looks pretty good for some IFR there, and quite an area here over the southern Bering Sea and the eastern and central Aleutians. And then as we go into tomorrow afternoon, this area presses in toward the coastline there. I think the IFR will remain off the coast, but definitely kind of an increase in the marginal conditions there, mostly northwest of Prince of Wales Island, again from Port Alexander on up, staying VFR back to the east, northeast VFR, IFR hanging in over the Gulf Coast, and then breaking out here over the southwest down to Kodiak Island as that flow turns westerly there, and then marginal or IFR anywhere out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. For passes, Anatuvik, VFR, and then some moisture lifting northward could go marginal. Same thing for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal, or mostly marginal probably, and for Rainy, marginal VFR. Windy looks marginal, and even the eastern Alaska Range passes like Isabel and Mentesta, pretty good chance of marginal VFR, even Tanita, marginal. And Portage starting out IFR, then trending better throughout the afternoon, especially here on the eastern entrances. The flow turns more westerly. Then for Chilkoot and White, another VFR day coming up for tomorrow. And the freezing levels showing a good thermal ridge right up the panhandle there. And not too bad, still 6,000 to 8,000 feet in over the north central and eastern interior. That warmer air that's contributing to the warmer temperatures there tomorrow. It's probably a little more sunshine. Otherwise, gradient back here where the frontal boundary is, 2,000 feet onto the coast, warming to 6,000 feet there over the northern Kuskokwim Valley and Cook Inlet, with a big area 2,000 feet. Again, a huge upper level low out here over the north and north central Bering Sea. And for icing, mostly above 5,000 feet here from the northwest interior, right down into northern Cook Inlet, maybe Prince William Sound, and then with that mass of moisture slipping on up to the northeast here, coming in mostly bearing down on the eastern Aleutians, and then a narrow band here with that weakening front, ever weakening front, right off the North Gulf Coast here on up into the eastern interior. Winds aloft. There's that trough I've been speaking of out over the Bering Sea there with a pretty good jet coming around that 120 knots right over the Aleutians. And southwest flow turns southerly here at about 70 knots into the North Gulf Coast, but notice the upper ridging here dominating the panhandle up into the eastern interior and of course northwest Canada. And for 9,000 feet, low pressure roughly in this position, southwest flow 15 to 20 to 25 knots into the interior, becoming more westerly, 20 to 25 over the southern interior, but lighter to the northeast. 3,000 feet, much the same thing, low pressure here, southwest flow into the southwest, but southerly and a lot lighter over the interior, easterlies up to 25 knots for the central and eastern Arctic coast. And for turbulence, not too bad, maybe some isolated mechanical stuff there from the central coast down to maybe Point Hope, and maybe just along and off the south coast of the Panhandle. Kodiak Island, flow turning westerly, could result in some light to isolated moderate chop there, mostly below 6,000 feet up toward Kamishak Bay, and also out here over the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, thank you to Alaska Public Media for sponsoring Hangar Flying. We are glad that you could join us this evening, and we are happy to have Antoinette Raddock back on our program to talk about her career in aviation. Welcome back to Hangar Flying, Antoinette.
Hello again.
On a previous show, we talked about what it takes to be an aircraft mechanic and about your job with an airline in Anchorage. Mm-hmm. So, being honest, a lot of people might be surprised to hear that you're a mechanic. There aren't a lot of females in the maintenance field at all. I think according to the Federal Aviation Administration, there's about 4% of aircraft mechanics are female. So how did you get interested in becoming an aircraft mechanic?
Well, when I was growing up as a kid, I always wanted to do what all the other girls weren't doing. So, and I went, that's just what I always wanted to do. I wanted to do something that, you know, somebody else wouldn't expect. So it's a challenge, and I like challenges.
And might you have been a little bit of a tomboy?
Yes, very much.
So you're not from Alaska originally, and I know you came here for your job. How did you find that job?
Well, I was looking for an adventure, and the first place, well, there was two choices, Alaska and Hawaii. Two different extremes as well, hot and cold. Alaska was the first place that got back to me, and I just said, I'll take it, you know, because how do you know, what's the point of life if you don't take chances? So.
And trying something new was definitely something you were interested in.
Oh yeah, and I was really excited, and I'm so glad I made that decision.
So what's been the most challenging part of your job since you've been here? Something that maybe you didn't expect, or something that surprised you?
The most challenging thing, I guess, would be to, sometimes things have to be done quickly, and you have to make sure that you're including safety in that and airworthiness. And that's challenging for me, is to work fast and efficient. And it's because I'm new to the field still. I need more experience, so it takes me just a little bit longer to kind of complete some tasks. But my main priority is make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And I think that's probably the most challenging.
And I think that's probably typical for somebody with a very short time in the industry as well. And as you get to learn the job, it'll all become second.
Yeah, it's all new to me still. So, I mean, you can never really know everything about aviation. You always have to have an open mind to keep learning. So
what are your long-term career plans? What do you see yourself doing in 15 years?
Well, I actually want to get into mechanical engineering, and I want to travel the world. So that's where I don't see myself really settling anywhere. I kind of want to leave my footprints around the globe.
Well, Alaska's a great place to start.
It is.
Is there any advice that you might have for somebody who is considering a career as an aircraft mechanic, maybe a female, or even just a person that might not have thought about that previously? What advice would you give them?
Confidence, that's a big factor. Don't be overconfident, but have enough confidence in yourself that you know what you're doing. Don't give up. Don't let anybody bring you down. And, have a little bit of thick skin, and positive. Be positive. I think that's a big thing right there. So.
Any advice on how somebody might develop that confidence? Because that's not always something that comes naturally to people, especially if they haven't been exposed to aviation. I know you didn't grow up in an aviation family with a lot of pilots and mechanics and airplanes around. So any ways that people might get that confidence without actually being in the field?
That's a really hard question. I guess knowledge is power. Read. You got a question? Ask somebody that knows. If they don't know, ask someone else that might know. Study, because the more that you gain knowledge by reading, the more that you're going to understand it and the more confidence that you're going to get within yourself. But some people don't always carry confidence, but it does start within. It always does. You just got to find a way to get it.
And that's great advice, to study and read. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here. We wish you luck with your career, and it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this program, I encourage you to become a member of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Our scholarship program helps support new professionals in the aviation industry. These folks are the future of aviation, and we are pleased to highlight them and encourage them in their careers. We support and appreciate you tuning in to Hangar Flying. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis for today, showing still some ice, but all of this waterlogged, rotting, and continuing to melt, and just kind of shifting around here. This patch in Norton Sound just about gone, and then thinning ice up in through the strait there into the Chukchi Basin. Then quite an open area here from near or just west of Point Barrow all the way down toward Cape Lisburne, and then some more open stuff over to the east. And moving on to the marine forecasts, northwesterlies at about 20 knots here in the south, variable turning light south for Lynn Canal, and then west to southwest at about 10 knots there on the north side. For Sunday, now they pick up a little bit. Small craft advisories here for, all of the coastline due to the sea heights up here in the north, and then 25 knot northwesterlies for Clarence Strait, diminishing as you go north, and then southerlies at about 15 for northern Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, variable winds, light, seas slight, just south 15 for the North Gulf Coast. Winds pick up here out of the west. Small craft advisories, from southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, Shelikof Strait, and the east side of Kodiak Island on up to the Barrens. Then for Sunday, still carry the small craft advisories here, now also along the North Gulf Coast with those westerlies, 25 knots, southwest 25 for Shelikof Strait, and then southwest 25 here, Kamishak Bay up into Cook Inlet, getting lighter north of the Forelands. For the Bristol Bay forecast tomorrow, west 20 knots, southwest 25 for the Alaska Peninsula, and west 30 knots from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. For Sunday, southwest winds 25 knots here, all of the Alaska Peninsula up into Bristol Bay with seas running 7 to 8 feet on the north side and 9 to 10 feet down there on the Pacific side. For the eastern Aleutians, pretty brisk southwesterlies at 25 to 30 knots through tomorrow with up 7 to 11 foot seas. Light and variable here on the Bering Sea side of Adak and Atka, small craft advisories on the south end, and then lighter winds out west. For the Sunday forecast, small craft advisories re-enter the picture out there in the far western zone. Pretty light west-northwesterlies, just 15 knots, and kind of a variable wind pattern, but for Unalaska Island, southwest 20 to 25. For the southwest coast, again, the small craft advisory south of Nunivak Island, 20 knots here all the way up to St. Lawrence Island. Pretty light winds for the Pribilofs and westerlies of 20 across the northern Bering. And then for Sunday, southwest everywhere, 20 to 25 knots here, southwest coast to St. Lawrence Island, staying light there for the Pribilofs. Up on the Arctic coast, easterly winds 15 to 20 knots here, the whole length, but from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, northeast 20, light and variable there for the Chukchi Sea. And then southerly winds 20 knots from Wales to Cape Beaufort, pretty light here on the west side. Pick the easterlies up, 20 to 25 knots there from the central coast to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, again, another surge of moisture sliding up into south central Alaska. Pretty wet conditions all through this area here where it's the shaded green, kind of breaking out the showers behind that trough, and drying out a little bit, winds diminishing for the Alaska Peninsula. And then for tomorrow, this front, the remnants of it pushing eastward and rapidly weakening. Showers along that boundary up and over the eastern interior, drying out to the west, and this system out here to the southwest, which will push on inland as a pretty good trough aloft here, bring some rain at least to the Alaska Range, back to the northwest, and look for more clouds and a chance of showers for the Panhandle. Have a great weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.